punishment by Nero was inflicted on the Christians. How do they even have a name?
A label.
Yeah, they got a label already. Like Christian literally means little Christs. A class of men given to this new and mischievous superstition. What do you think that is? It's the resurrection. They repeat it all the time throughout the literature. The superstition was the resurrection. These people genuinely believe this. Then you get to a guy named Tacitus, who's a Roman historian and a senator, very well respected. And he talks about what Nero did, right? Christians shouldn't exist in massive numbers in Rome at this point, 64 AD. But listen to what he says. To get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations. Man, they're hated. They're already a movement that's big enough to be hated. And they're called Christians by the populace. Christus, there it is again, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty. And now just listen to the check marks coming out of the Gospels. Suffered the extreme penalty, that's crucifixion, during the reign of Tiberius, check, at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilatus, check. And a most mischievous superstition, there it is again, what's that? The resurrection. Thus checked for the moment, again broke out. So now this is the second time it broke out when the fire happens. Not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome, where all things hideous and shameful from every part of the world find their center and become popular. Now listen to what he says. Remember, there shouldn't be a lot of Christians. He says, accordingly, an arrest was first made of all who pleaded guilty. Then, upon their information, an immense multitude, two words that have to do with great numbers, immense multitude was convicted. How is there an immense multitude of Christians in Rome in 64 AD if the gospel has barely been penned yet? Where did this testimony come from? People who saw it and went back home. Long before Mark pens this first gospel. Long before Paul's even visited and started ministry in Rome. He says, mockery of every sort was added to their deaths. They were covered with the skins of beasts. They were torn by dogs and perished, were nailed to crosses, or were doomed to the flames and burnt to serve as nightly illumination when the daylight had expired. They're everywhere. Yeah. You go and you listen to Pliny the Younger, who's a governor in the region of Turkey, I believe, who writes a letter to Trajan, who's like, let's stamp these people out, like get rid of them. And Pliny's like, okay, I did an investigation, and sorry to interject, Emperor, but I want you to know some things. Like he says, these people sang a hymn to Christ as to God and bound themselves by solemn oath not to do any wicked deeds, but never to commit any fraud, theft, or adultery, and never to falsify their word. And then he's like, before I go out and start handing out death penalties, I want you to know, like, this is a big deal. He says, I therefore postponed the investigation. I know that's risky of me, but I wanted to consult you, for the matter seemed to me to warrant consulting you, especially because of the number involved. For many persons of every age, every rank, and also of both sexes are and will be endangered, for this contagion of the superstition, there it is again, what's that? The resurrection has spread not only to the cities, but also to the villages and the farms. So you have in the Romans' own words, you have Claudius who's like, we got to stamp this out. No more missionaries. Get them out of Rome. Get them out of Alexandria. We got to shut this down. You've got them talking about the numbers, an immense multitude during Nero. Pliny's talking about it's every town, every city, every village, every farm. They're everywhere. In the first century, after the crucifixion and resurrection. How does that happen? Eyewitnesses went back home.
Yeah, it's not the passing around of letters, but it's these guys who said, oh no, I saw Jesus.
That's right.
Or I received the Holy Spirit. I was preached to, and I accepted it, and now I've gone out and told it.
Yeah, these people came back different than the people that went to Jerusalem. They came back people who believed that death didn't have the final word over them, and it radically changed them. And it's spread everywhere.